Short Vort on Parshas Shelach. This is going to be based off a shir I one time heard from Yossi Yerman, a Rebbe at Telz Yeshiva here in Chicago. So let's look actually at a pasuk in last week's parsha before we get to Shelach. The pasuk says, "Va'ish Moshe anav me'od mikol adam asher al pnei adam." This pasuk is being brought in reference to Miriam slandering her brother and then getting saras, the leprosy. The verse says in English, "The man Moshe was most humble, more so than any other person on the face of the earth." So let's ask a few very quick, simple questions. I actually think I did see these questions brought down in the Zera Shimshon. We're not going to give his answer. But the verse says that Moshe was humble, anav me'od, that Moshe was the most humble. Now, what did he do? He essentially didn't respond to the kindness to the claims of his sister Miriam. Well, if somebody is slandering you or making a claim against you and you don't respond, that is a level of humility, the Zera Shimshon says. But it's not necessarily an example of the most humble person of all time. Like a lot of people with a regular level of humility don't respond to when they are being slandered against. So why is Moshe referred to as anav me'od mikol adam? And anyways, the last part of the verse is also extraneous, which says asher al pnei adama. I mean, you could have just said ish Moshe anav me'od, the man Moshe mikol adam. The man Moshe was humble, more so than any other person. And then you could leave it there. Why do you have to say on the face of the earth? I mean, where are there people? I mean, maybe in the future people will be on Mars. I don't think they were on Mars or the moon at the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, let's pivot and look at a verse in Rashi in this week's Parsha. So at the beginning of this week's Parsha, we read, Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe, Lemor shlach lecha nashim v'yasur eretz Canaan, asher ani nosin libnei Yisrael, ish echad mate avoisav tishlaku kol nasi behem. And Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, send forth for yourselves men, and have them scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Bnei Yisrael. One man, each for his father's tribe you shall send them, each leader among them. Now, we're going to bring down something from the Shelach Apirya, which was written by Rav Shlomo Gansri, the author of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and he says, look at Rashi. See, Rashi over here says, Shlach hanashim, send thou men. Why is this section dealing with the spies put in juxtaposition with the section dealing with Miriam's punishment? To show the grievousness of the spy's sins, because she, Miriam, was punished on account of the slander which she uttered against her brother, and these sinners witnessed it, and yet they did not take a lesson from her. So essentially what Rashi is saying is that we have a klal that's ein mukdam mocher b'Torah. We don't have chronological order in the Torah. So when two events are put next to each other, well, there must be a significance to that, meaning Hashem literally chose to put these two events next to each other. You can't just assume that they're chronological, because Torah is not necessarily chronological. And so Rashi says, what is the lesson that we're supposed to learn by the smichus of these two parshas being put next to each other? He says that we learned that since Miriam spoke badly against her brother, and look what happened to her, these spies should have saw that and took a lesson and then ought to refrain from speaking negatively about the land of Israel. So the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, or Shlomo Gansried, asked very penetrating questions on this Rashi. He says, how could the Meraglim, the spies, have learned anything from the incident between Moshe and Miriam? Moshe was the greatest human being of all time. Of course, if Miriam spoke negatively about him, she was going to get sarah, she was going to get punished. But what did they speak negatively about? They spoke negatively about land, about something inanimate, eitzim v'avanim, stones and pieces of wood. So how could they have taken any lesson from Moshe Rabbeinu, a human being, something animate, and more than something animate, the greatest human being of all time, and applied that to eitzim v'avanim, to stones and wood? Rabbi Shlomo gives us an insight into the Aveira of Lashon Hara. So when a person speaks Lashon Hara, they are speaking against their friend, and they hurt their friend's feeling. That's Aveira number one. Now, there's also a second Aveira, a certain person that you're offending, or a certain entity that you're offending when you speak Lashon Hara, which is Hashem himself. Because Hashem created you. Hashem fashioned you. There's actually a Gemara in Masechtas Tainus that talks about how one time a rabbi saw another person and said to him, man, you are ugly. And the other person responded to him saying, well, don't take it up with me, take it up with the one who created me, meaning you're not insulting me. I didn't make me look this way. Hashem made me look this way. And the other rabbi, mamish, started begging him for forgiveness and realized that what that man said was so correct. So that is normally the sin of Lashon Hara. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu was beyond any regular human being. In fact, Moshe Rabbeinu he was so humble, as the verse that we saw over here testifies about. Ish Moshe Anam Me'od. He was so humble. This is what the Reb Shlomo Gansfried says, is that the emphasis of this verse is that Moshe was more humble than any other human being. He exemplified humility to the point that he himself felt nothing when people insulted him. He was like an inanimate object. He was like sticks and stones. See, that's what the super emphasis over there is. Meaning that a normal person, when they're insulted by somebody, what do? They hold it back. They're insulted, they hold it back, and they don't respond. That makes somebody humble. But to the point that they have no ego, that they don't feel anything at all, as if they are a wall, almost nobody on the planet can say that. The only person in the planet who could say that was Moshe Rabbeinu. He got to a level of humility that he was so buttle to the point that when people spoke against him, he was like something that was inanimate. He was like Anav me'od mikol ha'adam al asher al pnei adama. He was like al pnei adama. He was like the face of the earth. Something inanimate, something like a stick, stones, dust. This is what Rosh Shlomo Gansfried now explains this verse. Now we see that there was nothing extraneous in this verse. The verse was teaching us a great lesson. And now we can understand the Rashi that we had seen earlier, meaning they should have actually learned from the example of Moshe, because Moshe was like the land of Israel. Moshe was as if he was inanimate. It was as if he was sticks and stones. He felt nothing. Everybody knew how humble he was. And he was not offended at their words. But still, God took up his case at Miriam. Because granted that Moshe himself wasn't offended one iota, but you still slandered HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who created Moshe Rabbeinu. There's still a sin against Hashem, because Hashem chose him to be his Eved, the best Eved in the world. And so when you say what you're saying something negative about Hashem, even though Moshe himself doesn't care at all. So the Meraglim should have learned that if Hashem is going to take it up for Moshe, somebody with no feelings, as if he was inanimate, Kal v'chomer, of course he's going to take it up for the land of Israel, because you're also saying something bad about Hashem himself, because Hashem also promised us the land of Israel and said it was good. So there was directly what to learn. He should have learned from the case of Moshe Rabbeinu. Somebody who was like a stick and stone, that you can't even speak bad about the sticks and stones of Eretz Yisrael. What we see from this beautiful piece from the Apirian, Reb Shlomo Gansfried, is that how careful we have to be with our tongue, even to the point that we have to watch what we say, seemingly, about inanimate objects, because everything in this entire world was created by Hashem. Have a great Shabbos.